Hey dude, so I don't think I'm alone in hoping for a complete, all-out, massive war at the end of the series, right? You know, a war that's gonna make Marineford look like an absolute kid's game. And I think personally that the most exciting thing I can imagine is Luffy filling, you know, that Whitebeard role, leading his own massive fleet into battle against the entire world government. But then, every time I actually think about it, I kind of struggle to figure out who is actually going to be in this grand fleet, in Luffy's giant army at the end. Who will fill that Marco, Jozu, and Oars Jr. role, and who will just be fighting alongside Luffy as an accidental ally, you know, the way him and the prisoners did at Marineford as well. So I kind of got to thinking, and this is what I've now been settling on. I'll break this down into 4 tiers actually on my handy chart right here. I'll explain it as we go. So let's kick things off with someone that we are all wondering about, the cursed prince Loki, since it's very, you know, on topic. And I gotta say, dude, Loki, man, he's just something else. He's summoning island-sized lightning and just absolutely makes everyone else look like a tiny, teeny little baby toy or something. He's a Yonko level threat, I would say, and based on the Hurley text and the mural here, gotta go in every video, I kind of feel like it's very, very likely that he will play a major role in this final battle if he survives Elbaf. At least I'd say if this ancient giant here is supposed to be foreshadowing for his involvement. But I haven't quite settled on what his real role in the story is gonna be, so I'll just throw him in the would be really cool tier because, you know, the way things are going in Elbaf, he might not even survive that. Because honestly, having him on Luffy's side is kind of like, I guess, if Kaido suddenly showed up to help Whitebeard, which would have been pretty cool, I guess. But then there's also one group from the murals that I'm very confident that will show up 100%. Our furry friends on Zunisha, the Mink tribe. And I kind of feel like some people might have forgotten that Luffy has just straight up an entire nation of furry warriors on his side as well. I'm pretty confident that we will definitely have the entire Mink tribe just completely show up as part of his fleet, riding in on Zunisha, who, by the way, I also think will play a pretty important role in the final war. I don't know, maybe the giant elephant will finally make up for whatever big crime they committed in the ancient past, but with their electric fighting skills and their ultimate Sulong transformation, you know, the Minks are gonna be a pretty powerful addition to Luffy's army. On the other end, I'm also confident there are gonna be allies that aren't on the fleet, but just sailing alongside Luffy. And I think a prime example for this is Luffy's daddy and brother, Sabo and Dragon here, leading of course the revolutionary army. Now they will go right into what I'm gonna call the allies tier, and this tier is kind of for people who will 100% be at that final battle, but you know, not necessarily joining in as part of Luffy's big pirate fleet. You get what I'm saying? Because surely at this point, Dragon will do something, right? Come on, like this man is just gonna have to prove us believers right and join the final war and like just do something, please. Now, of course, there is no real way that Sabo is staying out of a fight like this at all, so the revolutionary army will definitely be at the final war. Interestingly enough, Dragon even mentioned in this panel here that the Holy Knights are a real threat that, you know, is really relevant to their plan, so it's possible that they'll even match up during that battle together. And I believe in you, Dragon! I believe in you. You know, just gonna hopefully do something soon. Now, this next one might make you scream at me from across the screen maybe, but I'm gonna put 2 admirals in the would be pretty cool tier right here. That's right, I said it. Admirals. I'm talking specifically about Akainu and Kizaru here. I know. And the reason that they are in this tier here is because there are some hints, I feel, in the story, in their character arcs, that they could actually turn against the world governments. Now, for Akainu, it seems so weird that we're actually even talking about this, but he doesn't like being bossed around by the Gorosei, and we have already seen Kizaru nearly break down completely while fighting his own friends and having to kill Vegapunk in Egghead Island. Now, Fujitora here is basically already a rebel, but we'll talk more about him in just a moment. So, for now, I think that these 2 are super close to potentially actually flipping sides and helping Luffy defeat the world government. So how's all of that for all you power scalers out there? Like, let me know what that would do to the final war. But now I want to cover a quick and obvious one all the way to the top now, because we have the Straw Hat Grand Fleet going right where they belong, of course, into the fleet tier. I mean, they can't really go anywhere else other than the tier for pirates and nations who have quite literally accepted Luffy as their leader and captain. Now, you might have noticed that I kept Bartolomeo in here because for now, I guess we're assuming that, I guess he's still alive, but honestly, it's not looking super hot for him. I just kind of gotta have faith in Oda to not kill characters as he always does, so we'll see, I guess. You might have also noticed that I didn't put the new Giant Pirate Warriors captain Hydrogen here for a very specific reason we'll talk about in just a moment as well. And then just to finish out our tiers here completely, we have the probably tier. This is kind of the tier for the characters who are, you know, a real 50-50 in my books, like a coin flip. 50 chance on if they will show up or not. For example, characters like, you know, former Raja pirates such as Rayleigh, my man, Scalper Gaban, and even Old Man Crocus here. I'll even throw someone like Shaki in here because she was on the Rocks Pirates, and the reason they're in this tier is because it's honestly kind of really hard to say, I hope you agree, if they will actually come fight or not. Like, don't get me wrong, they would absolutely be on Luffy's side, but we've already kind of seen how all of these old-timers here just kind of like to sit back and chill and get really hammered, I guess. So first of all, who can blame them? But also, it's entirely possible that they don't even bother to come at all. After all, Rayleigh kind of thinks it's now all up to the new generation anyways. But now I do want to go back all the way to our big dogs, because for our next group here, let me drop some true powerhouses into our final tier, because in the allies tier, we have the coolest man on the high seas, Trafalgar D. Waterlaw. You and I both know that he will, of course, be on Luffy's side in the final war, but if he hasn't accepted Luffy as his captain at this point in the story, honestly, I just don't think he ever will, so he's just an ally for now. You know, like, we're friends. We're friends. That's all, friends. But to be fair, I'm not super confident if Vivi here, for example, will be a fleet member or just an ally. Regardless, I'm pretty confident that all of Alabasta will sit nice and clean in the allies tier, and the reason I'm kind of hung up on Vivi is because I don't think her role will be as a strong fighter, unless she's like had a massive power-up in between, but I'm still certain she will play a pretty major role in the final war. Why? Well, Imu seems to be hyper fixated on her, and unless she straight up becomes another Straw Hat, which might happen as well, I'll put her here. And since we're doing a little bit, you know, of an ally circle, how about a fighter who is more likely to fight Luffy than actually help him? I'm talking about none other than Eustace Captain Kidd, who straight up is probably also dead. Shout out to Big Shanks, kind of the real one for taking out the trash, I guess, but if this boy is still alive, we all know that he'll show up to the final war with nothing but his right-hand man killer and a lust for vengeance, though honestly with his luck and skill record, he'll just get one shot again anyway, so I'll leave them in the probably tier for now. I personally am not gonna be super sad if we don't see Kid in the story again. There, I said it. Alright, this next group of characters though is one you've probably just completely straight up forgotten all about. At first, I was gonna put them in the probably tier, but in the end, I do think that they will show up because, you know, they have saved Luffy many times already in the story, and I can kind of see it happening one final time. You wanna know who they are? Alright, yo, okay, here we go. Marco the Phoenix and my boy, Mr. 3 Bon Clay. I think both of them are gonna go in our allies tier here. You see, based on the ending of Wano, there is a pretty good chance I think that Marco is headed to Impel Down right now to break out the former warlord Weevil, you know, the son of his former captain. And if that happens, I kind of expect another straight on full prison break with Bon Clay and all the other prisoners here. I guess that means we also gotta throw Weevil in here somewhere, so allies it is. And I guess maybe someone like Dofi too? Why not? I mean, probably seems right, but it's also because I'm pretty positive that, you know, Dofi will end up with Cross Guild as well. And now, if there is gonna be a prison break again, could we get the king of the underworld himself to finally break free and join Luffy potentially? Because I just really think it would be beyond sick and awesome if the former Warden Magellan, a critically underrated and forgotten character, squares up against the world government that let him down so much. I mean, please give me the vampire poison man that, you know, defeated everyone, or give me death. But, you know, that's a bit of a long shot. There is like zero foreshadowing for this, so we're gonna have to put him in the would be pretty cool tier. And as you can tell already, I might be getting a little bit too hopeful for some of these here, so let me instead switch over to someone I am way more confident about. We're talking about the Mermaid Princess, Shirahoshi, and the rest of the Ryukyu Kingdom. Now, I think it should be pretty obvious to both you and me that they will absolutely be part of Luffy's Luffy's final war on Luffy's side, especially since Shirahoshi is the ancient weapon Poseidon. Not a crew member, of course, but a really strong ally for sure, alongside her brothers and father, if I had to bet any money, which I'm not gonna, but if I were, I would bet on it. After all, we do know that she's bound to use her powers to command the Sea Kings at some point. Maybe she could just, I don't know, use that power to literally destroy islands, but it's more likely I think that she'll rescue people from the next massive flood with the giant ship, the Noah, which we also saw in the big mural in the Harley. Moving on though, this next group of characters really gave me surprisingly a lot of trouble. And even discussing it with my team, we just couldn't really settle on whether Kobe and the other members of the Sword Organization would actually become Luffy's allies at the end of the story. I mean, we do know that Kobe has outright stated at this point that he wants to stop Luffy since he's a pirate, even though he's kind of also fanboying for him. He's a very complicated character, I guess. So even though we know that they're generally good people and would probably help fight against the corrupted world government leaders, maybe even becoming the next generation of Marines, I just can't put them any higher than the probably tier, at least for now. Also, since we're talking about some controversial takes here, I've also come to a bit of a problem at this point. Gotta be honest with you. I don't even know what to call this. Maybe just theory or a hypothetical character. I'm kind of not sure. Like, you'll see what I mean in just a second. Let's just get into this because I think it would be insanely cool if we got a real traitor from the actual world nobles or their knights to join Luffy's side at the end as well. Now, I don't know about you, but ever since the Holy Knights were soft confirmed to be the true villains of Elbaf at this point, I've been kind of wondering if maybe one of them could switch sides? Because in particularly Gunko here has, you know, the same hat and glasses that many of the Revolutionary Army members wear, so she would make a pretty good candidate as anyone to rebel at some point. But there is also a reason why I think this could happen, and it all comes down to the Abyss. Ooh, the power of, you know, you get it. All right, because it just kind of makes way too much sense to me that eventually someone with this power will help bring the Straw Hat allies to join the war. You get what I'm saying? Because I know that there are some restrictions on using this power with the mark and all of that stuff, but I kind of like to imagine that someone will actually use this ability to help the good guys. Also, when you really think about it, how else could everyone from all around the world just suddenly show up at the same time, on time? I guess could use Kuma, who could do that as well somehow, but you know, that's the idea that I have for now. It would be pretty cool if someone like Gunko joined the good side and then basically rallied the troops together. And if the good guys had teleportation, then it would be a lot easier for many of Luffy's really random allies that he made along his journey all around the globe, you know, to actually show up during that final battle. More specifically, there are a lot of characters from the recent Harley mural here in Elbaf. You see, I bring this up every chance I get. You get it though, right? So anyways, from the Harley mural here in Elbaf that hint at characters who could show up in the final war, I think. In fact, it's entirely possible that we get characters from the Long Arm and Long Leg tribe, like maybe Scratchman Apu, since he's from the Long Arm tribe, I don't know, plus any leftover Lunarians with this character here. I think it's even possible we get maybe a giant awesome robot like we saw in Eket. And on top of that, we could also see other allies from around the world like the Shipwrights of Water 7 or the Rosy Life Riders from Sabaody join the battle as well. But not only that, did you know that you can actually also join the final battle? I mean, just like all of these characters that we're ranking are teaming up with Luffy, you can join my team by signing up on the Ohara Patreon. And as you know, Patreon is where you get instant access to bonus content that you won't get to see anywhere else. I'm talking about artwork, early chapter reactions, bonus exclusive videos, and so much more. And every single one of your dollars really helps support my amazing team of artists and editors. So if you want to join the crew, check out the Patreon link in the description below. But now that the bills are paid, back to the tier list. And specifically, I want to now talk about a group who could make a massive difference in the final war, but probably not in the way that you might be thinking. Because I don't think that there's any doubt whatsoever that the legendary doctors from Drum Island will also be showing up as Luffy's allies. We're talking about Dr. Kureha and the other surgeons, plus of course their only real quote-unquote strong fighter, the Bison Man Dalton. And while they won't make a massive difference in terms of power level, the legendary doctors from Chopper's hometown will absolutely make a massive difference with healing the injured soldiers during the final battle. And honestly, seeing how powerful the world government is shaping up to be, we do know that they will need all the help that they can get in that department as well. And just how I think that Chopper is very likely to reunite with his mentor during this fight, I'm predicting that yet another reunion is gonna happen to complete one of the other Straw Hats' dreams as well. And I want to get a little bit wild with this one because I do like to think that we will get to see an entire fleet of island whales like Laboon come to help in the final war as well. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they're gonna climb out of the water and fight the Marines on land, even though that would be cool, but whales have been showing up with the Straw Hats at almost every major story moment throughout the entire series. Think like when they entered the Grand Line, first learn about Laugh Tale, when they entered the New World, when they found the first road poneglyph in the whale tree. Like, those are just a few examples, so while it isn't 100% guaranteed, I think it would be absolutely awesome. Like, perhaps they could help save other people from the flood, or even try to destroy the Red Line like we've been seeing Laboon try all the way back at the beginning of the story. Now, this next group here isn't gonna bring a massive army, but they do include one of the strongest allies of all time from the pre-time skip era, and I honestly can't wait to see my guy Wiper and all the Sky People come down from the heavens as allies to help Luffy in the final war. To be completely honest, they are probably one of my all-time favorite groups, and with their ties to the Ancient Kingdom and Joy Boy, I'm pretty confident that they will come down and fight on Luffy's side. And if you forgot, by the way, how strong Viper actually is, don't forget he literally managed to kill Enel without Haki or a Devil Fruit before the Lightning God then kind of, cheated and brought himself back to life. That was not nice. That's not how that's supposed to work. But this next character is one that I honestly don't know at all what they're really gonna do. I'm talking about the former Admiral, we're back with the Admirals, Kuzan, who is currently a Titanic captain on Blackbeard's crew. But you kind of have to be thinking what I'm thinking here, right? Like, he's not gonna stay on Blackbeard's side forever, like, surely not. But will he actually join Luffy in the fight against the world government? I honestly can't say 100% for sure, but it would be absolutely amazing if he did, so he will go into the would-be really cool tier for now. Or maybe, should I say, would-be cold tier? Alright. There are some Marines, though, who I do think are actually even more likely to be fighting with Luffy than him, because remember Smoker and Tashigi? Yeah, I know they haven't exactly been showing up recently, even though Smoker was, I guess, initially set up to be Luffy's main Marine rival, but Smoker has been on a journey of self-discovery through Luffy and figuring out the government's true corruption for himself, and I do think that he is one of those characters that will turn against them in the end, no matter what. That being said, I guess it's not 100% guaranteed, so we'll have to put him in the probably tier for now, which is exactly the same tier that we'll put the Admiral Fujitora in, because he's already kind of set himself against the corruption of the world government right from the get-go, really, so it's only a matter of time, I think, before he fully turns against them. And will he then actually fight with Luffy? Can't really say I'm 100% sure on this one as well, like, so I think it's the probably tier for the Gravity Master as well. And while Gravity might be all about the laws of attraction, there is someone I know that's even worse at defying gravity when it comes to Luffy that will probably join the fleet. We're talking about the baddest baddie on the sea, the Pirate Empress Boa Hancock. And she's down pretty bad, and there is no way I think that she would not ride by Luffy's side into the final war as part of Luffy's fleet. I do wonder though how much her Devil Fruit would actually work on this massive battlefield. Like, will any of the top tiers really be affected by her Mero powers? I personally somewhat doubt it. Like, maybe she could take down some of the weaker fighters like the Pacifista, or maybe she'll just follow Luffy around with a giant sack of meat, to keep her hubby nice and full. But then again, she also has Conqueror's Haki, so maybe she gets a nice power boost as well at the end of the story. Now, you're probably gonna think that I'm a bit crazy with this next one, but just hear me out for a moment. We do know that Luffy and the crew still have to go to Laugh Tale, right? Which means that they still might actually visit the last official island on the log post route, which is Lodestar Island. So let me ask you this. Do you think that there will be any people living on this island? Like, I don't know, a kingdom or even a village? What do you think? I personally like to think that we will see some ancient, powerful people on this island, and if that's true, then I would assume that they will also probably become Luffy's allies. Like, they definitely would not be friends with the world government, so I could see these people joining Luffy in the final battle as well, and who knows, they might even be a nation with potentially advanced technology still left over from the Void Century. Maybe a race of giant robots like Emeth? Like, just spitballing here, but this is obviously all speculation, so for now, let's just put Emeth here as a placeholder in the would-be cool tier to kind of represent that idea. Instead, let's now shift focus to some other strong pirates here, because we have some leftover supernova that are just hanging out in the world doing nothing, which is not acceptable, I think, and I wouldn't be too surprised if Oda brought them all back for the final war. We're talking about characters like Mad Monk Rouge, the gangster Capone Beige, and there's, I guess, X-Drake, who will probably show up with Kobe and Sword, and I hope you agree that I think it's fairly likely that some of these guys at least are gonna show up, so let's chuck them all in the probably tier for now. But can I tell you a secret? There's someone I want way more to join, you know, Luffy's army than any of these boring old supernova, because can we please get a Katakuri in here? Please? I mean, ever since the end of Whole Cake Island, people have been wondering if he would become an ally in the future, and honestly, he didn't come in Wano, so what better time for him and the rest of the remaining Big Mom pirates to join Luffy's side than in that final war? Blackbeard did kidnap Katakuri's sister after all, don't forget, so this is one reason for him to join up with Luffy and, you know, fight on his side. And based on the end of the Whole Cake Island arc, resulting in him having a little bro moment, kind of think that putting him in the allies tier would be not that bad of a bet. But next up, it's now time to discuss some characters who might have the greatest impact on saving the actual world, because after the destruction of Egghead Island, we now learned that the leftover Vegapunk satellites actually escaped and are now off doing something, I guess. Like, we do know that they called up the weather scientist of Weatheria from Nami's time skip, which was kind of cool also, so my bet would be that they're working on something weather related to help maybe reverse the worldwide flood or something like that, but I wouldn't doubt that they're still gonna show up in the final battle as allies in some way, shape, or form. As for the other Vegapunks, I mean, I think we all don't really care about York, but she definitely won't be an ally at this point, and who knows what Lilith is gonna do, but maybe she could invent some new weapons that would give some of the weaker fighters in this big army, you know, a major boost in their powers. But at this point, I feel like it's even unclear if she's gonna leave Elbaf at this point, but if Kuma and Bonnie come to the final battle to fight for Luffy, then Lilith will probably be there as well. So let's throw all three of these characters together in their like right here. We've come all this way now without, of course, talking about Luffy's strongest army, so let's now talk about the nation of Wano, because in my opinion, they will absolutely be sailing under Luffy's flag, and they will be bringing some real powerhouses. Momo, the fully grown dragon samurai with Kaido's devil fruit. Yamato, please join the crew, who is strong enough to hold off a Yonko. And then they also have the samurai retainers and the former dukes of Zou, who are also all extremely powerful in their own rights, who can't be taken lightly whatsoever. Plus, they could be bringing along the ancient weapon Pluton, unless Blackbeard gets it first, I guess, which by itself would be an absolute game changer, even though we don't know exactly what it still is. And if Blackbeard's gonna steal it, and also maybe Poseidon, well, that's a whole different discussion, and then Luffy just needs an even bigger army to, you know, hold his ground, I guess. But speaking of Blackbeard, since we're talking about him, did you remember how he captured Garp? Yeah, that happened. So will Garp be able to fight with Luffy in the final war? Honestly, I kind of have a hunch that it's not gonna happen. My personal opinion is that he will actually die before that, so I won't even add him on the tier list for now. However, if he hopefully is still alive at this point, he will very likely join Luffy since he hates the world nobles more than anyone, and also I don't think he would like to see a second grandson of his die, so yeah, good chances. But now, what's gonna really make some of the Shanks fanboys tilted is that we do have to have the conversation about the beast, about the Shanks. Will Shanks still be alive for the final war also? Like, it is a legitimate question, I think. On the one hand, if he's alive, he's definitely gonna be there, no question. But there also are some big literally clashes lined up for him, and I don't know if he's gonna survive that long, because at this point he's most likely gonna fight that secret someone who was introduced in Elbaf, and at some point he simply has to fight Blackbeard again as well, right? And this is where I think that Shanks could actually bite the dust. I mean, I do still want to put him on this list, obviously, so I will drop him in the probably tier and leave it at that if he's still alive. But hey, even if we don't end up getting Shanks, we can cope a little bit and almost certainly get his most famous rival, because there's just no way, come on, that Buggy, Mihawk, Crocodile, and like the entire rest of the Cross Guild don't show up for the biggest battle of them all. They just have to be there, right? There's no way that Buggy is missing his chance to fall into being Pirate King or King of the World or something like that at the end of the story, right? So I will put Cross Guild into the allies tier, even if initially they might clash with Luffy. I think there's too much chemistry and history there. They will fight side by side in the end. I do have another allied nation here for you though, because I do feel like Luffy's friends from Dressrosa might be making an appearance in the final war as well. I'm talking about ultimate fighters like Princess Rebecca and her dad Kyros. And while they are not crazy strong fighters, I still see them playing a role kind of like Vivi, where they are there more of as a symbol of the nations of the world turning against the world government. So all of them are gonna go into the allies tier as well. But now, all right, buckle in. It's time for the most controversial take probably in this whole video, and I know that says something because you may have noticed that I haven't discussed Luffy's biggest allies yet, the literally massive army of giants from Elbaf. But all is not quite well in the Luffy X Giant alliance at the moment, because based at least on current events in Elbaf, we kind of really need to question whether the giants will still be Luffy's allies at the end of this arc. Which, don't get me wrong, if it doesn't happen, would be an insane curveball. I mean, the giant prince Hyrule is quite literally a part of Luffy's grand fleet, so it should just be a slam dunk, no doubt fact that he will be there, right? But I don't quite still know about that right now. You see, Luffy has basically committed the worst possible crime in Elbaf right now by freeing Loki, and there's just a real chance that his actions could directly lead to the destruction of the entire island. So you tell me, do you think the giants will still be friends with him if that would happen? Now, of course, we don't know what's gonna happen, and it's still very likely that Luffy just saves the giant children from the Holy Knights and everyone is still all buddy-buddy at the end. Like, I would give that like an 80%, but I do still have my doubts, so I will have to stick Hyrule and the other giants in the probably tier for now. And since we're on the topic of the giants and Elbaf, the power level has been turning up insanely in Elbaf. And since people like Scopper, Loki, and the Holy Knights have all been hitting the scene now, I've been kind of wondering, especially in the context of the final war, how many of these characters are actually Yonko level. Like, this is a pretty serious debate we're gonna have to have, and you can actually check out my entire thoughts on every character that I think is Yonko level in One Piece right here. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and a special thank you to all the Patreons. If you are already one of these members, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much it means that you are supporting us, and I will see you in this next video, hopefully, or whenever you watch the next one. Bye bye.